You know, sometimes you do have to stare quality in the face. You do. The one that I have in my collection that I actually purchased that is, some would argue, similarly trashy, but good gameplay, is...
I'm guessing either it's not Parodius?
Proteus? No, although a fair call.
Because
a fair call.
some of the Parodius games are rather offensive.
They are. For those of you who don't know, it was actually... it helped form a genre which is known simply as the cute 'em up instead of the shoot 'em up. And what it is
I've
it's...
never heard that one.
Yeah, cute 'em up. It's basically funny stuff, anecdotal humor, pop culture references from the day, thrown into what would otherwise be a legitimate shooter game that we're talking about earlier. And when we say shooter, we're talking about two different kinds specifically of shooters. You have your TV like this, and you have your ship at the bottom, and you're shooting up like this. You guys have all seen it, Space Invaders, old school stuff. And then the other kind would be tipped on its side, and your ship is here, the bad guy's here, and you go this way in the screen, and you shoot this way.
And for those of you who've never played both in the same game, Life Force on the old Nintendo is one of the best ones ever made. It's Gradius 2, I believe.
I think so. Part of the Gradius series, which is related to Parody.
It's the second Gradius game, I believe, and the whole thing takes place inside of a giant space organism of some kind.
Like a body of sorts, right?
Yeah, everything is, you know, brain and
blood
cells, and so all of your enemies are actually living things, and you're sort of like a small probe inside this thing, although it's supposed to be some giant monster that you're inside of. So it's really the closest you can get to playing that, what was that movie?
Inner Space.
Inner Space, yeah.
Inner Space, yeah.
Closest thing you can get to a gaming experience like that.
Yeah, minus the Martin Short, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And the Dennis Quaid, I suppose, too.
But you never know. They could be the pilots of the two ships.
Exactly. That's the thing with graphics like that.
It was before they could really put speech in games, so you never know. I mean,
that's true.
They could be the pilots.
Yeah, and for all we know, even if they couldn't get their words in, they sponsored the project. You know, this game is sponsored by Martin Short.
I think if he could sponsor a game, he would probably sponsor a game where you take basically an X-wing from Star Wars, fly it into the mouth of a giant creature, and then fight its brain with giant robotic arms.
Awesome.
Well, I don't think you can really improve upon that.
That's the only way to fly, really.
Maybe wrapping it in bacon, which improves everything. But I mean, it really is just one of those things. It's simply no. It's like, oh, this is good. We can make it better by wrapping it in bacon.
Is it in bacon? Yeah. It is the room for improvement. It is bacon. Yeah. Absolutely. So Parodius is a series, is one of many. Also, Bonk. Bonk is a TurboGrafx game. Since I've gotten the Wii, I've gotten into the TurboGrafx stuff, and I never owned one. But for $6 you can get all this stuff. And they had this game that I played it actually at Toys R Us in Tucson before I left for Moscow. And I played it quite a bit. It was one of those, I almost bought a TurboGrafx for $50 just before I left Arizona. The toss-up was, do I get a Game Boy original for $50, same price. The games for the TurboGrafx were all $10 because it was on its dying leg. So you had the original Game Boy, which the machine cost the same, but the software, it was more expensive actually.
Yeah.
But the Game Boys also.
It was cutting edge at the time.
It was, and it lasted, of course, forever.
Yeah.
Barring the Neo Geo, which I think technically resigned a little while ago, it is the longest lasting console out there.
I still play Game Boy games, actually.
I do too. I do too. There are some really amazing ones.
In fact, for those of you that are RPG fans, one of the most overlooked games ever, and in fact one of the better ones, I think, was Final Fantasy Legend on the original Game Boy. It's very, very hard to find. You can usually find Final Fantasy Legend 2 or Legend 3, but the original Final Fantasy Legend is incredibly hard to find. And not to be confused with Final Fantasy Adventure, which is actually Sword of Mana. The Game Boy Advance release that came out, that was the Mana game, is actually a remake of Final Fantasy Adventure, which was, I think 15 years before Secret of Mana, plot-wise.
Interesting. It's 15 years within the game. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so it's actually the prequel to Secret of Mana, and so I believe that makes it the first game in the Mana series. I'm not sure if Seiken Densetsu 1, which I don't know what they called it over here, if it ever got released.
I love the Japanese names.
But Seiken Densetsu 2 was Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. And Seiken Densetsu 3, you can find in ROM form, translated by the fans, also a very good game.
Is that, see, because, I mean, that kind of, I was wondering this question for myself also, and I was going to ask you specifically. Would you say that this is really one of those treasures that, for me as a gamer who's a sort of ambassador for gamers and rather gaming, there's always that game that I always want to be like, dude, check this out. Is that the one for you? If you had to choose one, say.
Which of those?
Okay. Is it really that
well,
the
no,
GB series?
Which game are you talking about?
Your Final Fantasy Legend.
Fantasy Legend.
Uh-huh.
I would say it's probably the best of the games, because RPGs have lots of different styles, and so there's sort of the old Dungeons and Dragons style where you just have a view of what the character sees in front of them,
like first-person adventure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of those simply because
dungeon crawlers.
To me, they don't flow in a way that you feel like you're actually walking through. It's more like you're seeing scenes from what happened.
I see what you're saying.
And to me, that interface causes a bit of a disconnect.
I could see that.
I've seen them done very well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just never seem to get as into them plot-wise because I'm more worried about fussing with the mechanics of controlling them.
I could see that.
They're sort of like the point-and-click adventures like Maniac Mansion.
Right.
They're neat, but with modern interfaces, those games are much better.
Yeah. They're still doing it, too. Actually, Orcs and Elves, the John Carmack phone game, you just ported to the DS.
Well, I mean, like Full Throttle, for instance, on PC.
Okay, Full Throttle.
Incredibly
classic.
Good game. In fact,
classic.
Is it Tim?
Yeah, it is.
What's his name?
Tim. Not
is it like Reichert or something like that?
Holy crap! I just forgot his name. I mean, I have his name.
I mean, he's incredibly famous.
Yeah, Schaefer.
Yes.
Schaefer. Right.
He's got that new game with Jack Black coming out, which looks to be pretty good.
Oh yeah, like Uber Rock or something.
Yeah, it's something.
It's something with it's got umlaut in it, which is always fun.
I forget what it's called, but it looks to be a pretty funny game. Didn't he also do Sam & Max?
Yeah. No, he did not.
Or
I don't.
Was he part of the team that came up with some of that?
He did. Not. I don't think he did Sam & Max, but he did do Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah.
And then he also did, I think, had a hand in Maniac Mansion.
Yeah,
and
he
had.
He was one of the main.
Yeah, he's the head writer.
People,
I believe.
Yeah.
He's a very funny guy, and I might be wrong on the Sam & Max, but I think that was another team. I think.
Yeah.
But it was LucasArts.
Yeah, I know that pretty much anything from that genre that was groundbreaking, he was responsible for.
Oh yeah, and he's a very funny, down-to-earth guy who he did Psychonauts most recently, and people.
Which is a game worth owning on any system you can get a hold of it on. I will say it's better on the 360.
Well, it's originally an Xbox game, so get the Xbox version, not the PS2 version.
Well, but now you can download it in the 360.
The originals.
Yeah.
Have you done it?
No, I've actually got.
You got the game?
I've got the Xbox disc.
It's a fantastic game. It really, really is.
Yeah.
It's a very, it doesn't, mechanically speaking, it doesn't bring too much to the table. But when you consider what it's trying to bring to that old mechanic, which is basically run, jump.
It's a platformer, yeah.
Yeah, it's a platform. But there's so much creativity that it just unfolds in a way unlike any other platformer. And that's, to me, I keep looking for a spiritual successor to Earthworm Jim, and that's as close as I've gotten in 3D, in my opinion.
There is one I was thinking of recently that I would say is Earthworm Jim in 3D.
Really?
Yeah. I'll have to go look through my collection, though. I don't remember what it is at the top
nice.
of my head.
I love Earthworm Jim.
I mean, I would say the MDK series is pretty close.
It is.
Which actually they're bringing back.
Who's doing it?
The original people.
Well, I mean, the original guys were Shiny, who did Earthworm Jim. Mm-hmm. The second guys were actually BioWare. That is BioWare's most ill-respected game.
Who released it and did the publication on it?
Interplay.
Yeah,
for both of them.
Interplay's coming back.
Interplay?
With MDK3.
That'd be nice.
Supposedly.
That'd be nice.
That's what the press is at this point.
I'd be scared to see
they're coming back with
who developed it.
Essentially solely as a publisher, sort of the way Ubisoft is doing a lot of their stuff.
Interplay used to rock.
Yeah. Supposedly Interplay is coming back, and they're bringing back one or two of their staples that they feel, everybody wants a sequel to these. We should get these out before we can't do it again.
Really?
And so they're trying to rebuild the company a bit.
Okay.
On some of those.
I think I'd heard about some restructuring because they were gone.
Chapter 11, I think.
Yeah, I think they were gone. Yeah. They were, which is a shame because as old school gamers, particularly during the 16-bit era, they really came through. They had the Clay Fighters, which was really popular on the Super Nintendo.
I never really got into that one,
but it sucks. But the graphics.
I did appreciate what they were doing with it.
The graphics were great, but the gameplay was horrible.
Yeah.
But that was back in the day.
Not as bad as Rise of the Robots, though.
Nothing's as bad as Rise of the Robots.
Well.
Really?